Hey everybody, my name is Chris Little with Why We Lead, and I'm here with Billy Folinusz, Army Major. He is currently running the Field Grade Leader, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But Billy, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and the journey, however, where you got today, and career, family, or anything else you kind of want to chat about a little bit.
All right, Chris, thank you first for having me on this. This is my first experience doing something like this, so we'll see how it goes. But
Okay, great.
my name is Billy Folinusz. Many people cannot say Folinusz, and that's okay. But it is a tough one to say. But I'm the only one on Global, so if you need to look me up, it's pretty easy to find.
Nice.
But background, originally from Cranford, New Jersey. Grew up there, same hometown as my parents. Grew up blue collar background. My dad is a career steam fitter, 39 years. My mom was a teacher while I was growing up. I have a brother and sister. My brother is a cop, actually in the same hometown that we grew up in. He was a big time baseball player, D1 school in New Jersey, Rutgers. My sister's a civil engineer in Manhattan. And my wife is actually also from the same hometown.
Nice.
We've been together for, oh boy, she's going to see this. Like 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 17 years. So we've been together for 17 years. We've been married for 8. And we have a son, Theodore. It was actually his 3rd birthday today. So that was pretty cool. And she's pregnant
Awesome.
with another one on the way in December. So we're busy. And then I actually, being from New Jersey, probably the number one reason that I'm actually in the Army today and in this profession is September 11th. It was a pretty powerful time being that close. My dad was actually at the Linden Power Plant and saw the planes hit the towers. We had to close the windows of my high school because there was smoke coming across, and they were afraid there was asbestos in the air. It was a big deal. I will never forget that day, and that was the day that I decided that I would absolutely wear the uniform one day in one way, shape, or form. My journey ended up going to James Madison University in Virginia, where I did ROTC for 4 years. I originally wanted to be an infantry officer, but I had a great mentor who was a cavalryman, and he mentored me. That's a Stetson. That's a cavalryman or a funny hat. But he mentored me and put me in some great opportunities, and I decided to put in for armor, and I was lucky enough to get it. And then I've been an armor officer ever since. My quick background: started out in 3rd ACR as a lieutenant. Ironically, I got to Iraq, took over an engineer platoon and did route clearance for a year. So that was fun. And then we came back home, transitioned to Strikers, then came to 3rd Infantry Division, Rockland Marne, where I was a company commander in 164 Armor Tank Company. GRF for 8 months, did a rotation to Europe, then went to Temple University to be an assistant professor in military science for ROTC, which was an incredible experience, and I highly recommend it as a broadening assignment. I actually got my graduate degree in public policy from Temple University as well. And then went to Command General Staff College, and then I found my way back to the Rock of the Marne, and I think the patch is somewhere over here. Pretty proud of that organization for a lot of reasons, not just because I've been a part of it. And now I'm currently the CHOPS, the G33 for 3rd Infantry Division. So that's kind of my path and a little bit about myself. Pretty proud of being an armor officer, and I'm a big person on my family, and also having been in the Army now for 11 and a half years. It's what I love and what I'm all about pretty much professionally. So, but that's pretty much a little bit about myself.
That's awesome. And speaking of like being professional, we met through kind of a non-professional means, if you will. The Field Grade Leader, Josh Powers, who I know you're going to talk about in a little bit, but he started the Field Grade Leader 5-ish years ago, whenever he was, I think, in SAMS. And that's just how his website got started. He just started like shooting out some ideas, and it caught on. 11,000, I think, people now, might be more. But anyway, he has editors and people. And one day he had a call for writing, which was like, hey, I've kind of been interested for writing in a long time, and I've had ideas, and I wrote an article for him. And I think that's how I met you, is my paper got to you, and we just kept in contact somehow. And here you are, I don't know, 2 years later after we met, and you've kind of taken the helm, if you will, for the Field Grade Leader. So why don't you tell us a little bit how you got involved with the field grade leader and what you kind of plan on doing with it, if you will, as far as time permits, because I know you
Yeah.
just started a new job. You're about 5 weeks in, and it's pretty
Yeah.
pretty intense. So
So kind of the same thing. Josh, I think it was, man, I want to say it was February 2018,
mhm.
I think. And he put out an initiative about failure.
That's
And I was,
what I started at. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, man, I've done a lot of that. I should probably write about it. And it's a funny story about writing professionally for me is I had a boss at the time who was a PMS at Temple, Lieutenant Colonel Keith Benedict, who is one of the best leaders I've ever met in my life. The man is incredible. And I consider him a mentor and a friend. And he pushed me to write an article originally about ROTC as a broadening assignment. Because in the Army, being an ROTC instructor isn't viewed by a lot of people, to include when I left company command, I was told basically my career's over. And so he kind of prodded me to write something with him about that broadening assignment. And that kind of that really kind of pushed me to be like, man, I should write some stuff professionally. And then Josh, right after that, put out this call for the failure initiative. And I was like, that is something I have a lot of knowledge about. So I was like, let's do that. And I wrote an article about the curse of knowledge. And so I had a good experience, had some great feedback from the article. And I was like, this is something I should try and get involved in if possible. So I just fired off another email to him. I was like, hey, Josh, if you ever need help with the field grade leader, or there's anything I can ever do to help out, please let me know. So it was a couple of weeks went by and I got an email saying, hey, Billy, would you be interested in coming on as an editor? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Of course. That sounds awesome. And I think your article might've been the first one I ever edited.
Yeah.
And so like, that's where it started. And I ended up, just editing stuff and helping him in any way possible. I've run a bunch of all the initiatives pretty much that have happened since then. I've been the one trying to come up with the idea and a lot of the taglines on social media and stuff, because I'm truly passionate about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important just for people to share ideas, and there really shouldn't be a lot of professional writing spaces are stuffy. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of requirements. That's not what the field grade leader, I think, is about. I think it's more of a free flow of ideas and an opportunity to kind of not only put your ideas out there, but find yourself as a writer and gain some confidence, mm-hmm. which I think may be the more important part, where you don't have to have a perfect polished product. But a lot of people who may not be able to get to that right away, including myself, have found an opportunity to build on their own skills with very little, with a lot of reward. I mean, there is no consequence. Maybe
there really isn't. Other people see it, but
right. But right, okay. So your words are out there, and if people agree with you now, they can hold it against you. Somewhat. But there really is no consequence to building upon your skills, and writing's a part of our profession, an important part. I mean, I think I get 150 emails a day. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to them? You're right. And I mean, I subconsciously will judge people, whether I like it or not, about, okay, this email, what? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so why not take advantage of a forum like this, where you can then put time in, and really have there's no grade. Mm-hmm. There's nothing negative about it. So that's a piece of this. You asked like where I want this to go. Well, again, if you're watching this and you think, oh man, I don't know I have this piece. Mm-hmm. I've never turned away a piece. People have even gotten upset about the edits, and I've literally reached back out and been like, hey, sorry, that's not what the intent was. Let's have a conversation. I want to publish this. I want this to go on the site because I think it's excellent. I'm trying to give you constructive feedback. You may not like it, but whatever. And that is one of the key pieces is building continuing to build upon what Josh has built. And I think that's really important to talk about here is Josh Powers the foundation for this. And he's an incredible dude, an incredible officer. And he decided to kind of hand the reins over to me, which has been an awesome opportunity, because he wanted to kind of move on to another project, but he wanted this to continue because he saw the value in it to the profession of arms, no matter what your service. And I am lucky incredibly lucky. I don't know why he chose me. He hasn't told me. And honestly, I never asked because I don't care. I'm taking
Like, because you're passionate. You said it earlier. You're passionate about leadership, and
very.
I
I mean,
think that probably shone through. You know.
yeah, and maybe I don't know. I don't know. And it really, to me, it doesn't matter. I've been given this opportunity.
Mhm.
I'm gonna try and do right by it because it ultimately it wasn't my idea. It wasn't my baby.
Yeah.
But I've been given the ball and said, hey, push this down the field 10 yards.
Mhm.
Let's do that. So again, feel great leader. Like my number one thing is if you have a piece, send it, and we will get you linked up with somebody who we have a editor who works for the Air War College and who's a professor there who is an incredible editor. She edited one of my pieces and my feelings were hurt. She's smart. She's so smart.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am what I am, and I'm an armor officer. I shoot big guns, point me the right enemy that way, drop. But I have another guy who I'm really close with, National Guard officer Joe Bales, who's came on the team. He's an editor, really brilliant dude. Went to armor school together, great friend of mine. And then the guy who designed our new logo, Steve Orban, who I took over this job from at 3ID, another brilliant man. And we're looking for more people to help us out. So if you're out there, I want to build a team here that can help build this brand to make it something that continues to feed into the profession, to start conversations, so that way we all have passion about it, you know? So I don't know. I really don't have like a tangible business plan or any of that stuff. I want people to buy into it and feed it and have conversations where we can make people better. That's it.
Yeah. And I think when Josh took it over, I don't think he really had like a vision or mission for it, just like, hey, I want to get some ideas out there. And it kind of just took off from there. And that's really all it was. And I think it helped me get out of my comfort zone significantly and kind of it helped me get to where I'm at. I don't think if that would have happened, me and you wouldn't be talking right now, which is pretty crazy to think about. And it's helped me get my ideas out better, write things down, get my brain kind of thinking a lot more. And even just on Why We Lead, like I'm kind of a one-man team right now, and people send me stuff and I'll edit it. And even just editing has been fantastic. Like it shows me how other people think. It shows me like grammar, all that good stuff. So it helps broaden your horizons. Yes, you have to get out of your comfort zone, but nobody furthers themselves as a leader if they just stay in their comfort zone. So
absolutely.
I urge anybody to do it, particularly the field grade leader is just a super easy way to do it. And like you said, hey, you write something and send it, 99.9% of the time, if it's not like political or something sensitive to the forces, it's going to get published. So
I have not, I think I've turned away one thing in 3 months. And I don't know what Josh has done in the past. I'm telling you, but one thing. And I personally, I will go out of my way. If someone's like I've had people email, like, I guess this wasn't what you guys were looking for. I'll find another place. And I'm like, whoa, let's have a conversation and figure out how that we don't have to, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't the point. Right. So again, the venue it's been fantastic for me, and I'm obviously biased, but I think that if you were to send something in, you'd be pleasantly surprised, or even more surprised. You would think it'd be a great experience, and I think you'll be even more surprised by what comes out of it. Because I know for me, it's been incredibly beneficial, professionally, personally, in every way possible. So,
yeah, and it's helped you network significantly too. I met you that way, and I met Josh that way. Actually, on my last deployment, I met up with him in Hawaii on the way out there, which was pretty cool. So it's just got me in a lot of contacts, particularly for mentoring, things like that. So there's a lot of second and third order effects, I think, that come along with it, other than just writing, which is pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I mean, networking, it's interesting that you bring that up. Running the field grade leader is interesting because you get to see things from a very different perspective than if it was just my name on social media. You know what I mean? People don't know me from Adam, and I quite honestly don't care. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. But because it's the field grade leader account, a lot of people will reach out and see things, and then that now brings the curtain back And now it's like that relationship continues.
Yep.
So even like me getting able to see other people's ideas and then reach out with their ideas on like how to improve the site or things they want to work on, whatever, it increases the opportunity significantly. And you don't have to be the one that's running it for your network to grow. Again, what you said here, how me and you have connected, I just happened to be, I mean, literally, I think Josh said, hey, you want to edit this? And I was like, and that was my entrance onto the FGL team. Okay.
That's awesome.
You know, and I'm like, okay, that's great. Let's do that. And that's how you build that network. And if you really, like, again, you want to talk about a tangible skill that helps you as a leader, like networking is important. Like people want to talk about it sometimes, but networking is important. And having a professional network, a personal network that you can rely upon, not to get jobs or anything like that, but to reach out and be like, I have this problem. I'm in a negative space right now, whether it be mentally, physically, professionally, whatever. I need help or I need advice. I need to talk to someone who's been there before. The more diverse your network, the more wide ranging your network, the better off you're going to be. Because I'm very lucky. I've had a very weird, but a very lucky career to meet people in points in time that have kept me in uniform. I'm the guy who's like, I'm getting out. I hate this. I'm getting out. And then someone like Colonel Benedict will come riding along and be like, nope, I'm going to make you remember why you love this. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I can do this, you know, and that's happened to me multiple times in my career. Steve Orban, like I mentioned before, he's not only, quite honestly, my best friend, but he's a mentor. And I think we mentor each other, but we were very lucky. And I'm starting to build some of those relationships like ours through the Field Grade Leader and utilizing social media in a positive way. You know what I mean? So, I mean, networking, take advantage of what the social media tool is. Because a lot of people talk negative about, well, if you follow, you know, Justin Bieber and silly stuff on Twitter, that's what you're going to get back. You know, garbage in, garbage out.
It's true.
If garbage in, garbage out. If you follow things that are going to make you better, it's a tool. It's just like a hammer. You build a house with a hammer, you can kill somebody with a hammer. It's up to you. What do you want to do with it? Well, Twitter's the same thing. Yeah, and that's how I view it. And that's, you know, FGL has given me an opportunity to kind of explore that space a little bit faster than most people would, but take advantage of it. That's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. It's helped me to meet other people outside the Air Force, which kind of helps with a more diverse train of thought. Like just hearing Army lingo a lot, particularly like with Field Grade Leader with some of the articles, you're like, okay, I've heard of that. I'll bank that and keep it for future reference, you know, because being a captain in the Air Force, it's very, your aperture is not as wide as opposed to once you become a field grade officer or something. You don't get to meet a lot of, except on deployments, like a lot of other branches and things like that until you start to get in the joint environment. So that's been really interesting. Like on your own accord, you can go out and professionally develop and meet other branches and learn their lingo and things like that. So it's just very interesting. What is social media, I do think, is a double-edged sword. There is a way to use it. Like you were kind of talking about following Bieber on Twitter, you get what you look for, you know? So
it was a joke. It's a joke, but I mean, it illustrates a larger point about what you use it for.
It is. And it's a fine line because you are putting your ideas out there as a permanent record. Well, say, you know, Billy thought this as a lieutenant. Here he is, a full-bird colonel, and hopefully that happens. That'd be great.
We'll see. Don't. I got to make it through the next 11
knock on wood. You know, it's just like, well, hopefully what I wrote like 10 years ago doesn't come back to bite me. And that's when I kind of think it should just be professional development, not Billy development, you know, like it needs to have a purpose kind of behind it. Hey, I want to be a better writer. Let's write about things of my profession. Not, you can write about whatever you want, just don't publish it on the Field Grade Leader or other things. So
yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But again, the utilizing the spaces that are out there, Field Grade Leader, Company Grade Leader, which is another one that's phenomenal. The guy who runs that is incredible. Doug. Once I officially took this over, he reached out like that night and was like, "Hey man, let's try and figure some stuff out." Like, these people are out there to do good. And if you're not taking advantage of it, you're just, in my opinion, you're missing out.
Yeah,
like,
I would agree.
You know, for so many reasons, whether it's like we talked about, the networking, your own professional development, writing, you know, grammar skills, whatever it is, just getting outside your comfort zone. I'm uncomfortable right now, you know, like, and this is going, things like this will make you better if you put yourself out there. I feel like, and it is a permanent record, right? So you want to make sure that you're not putting a bad product out there. And that's why you have people who are like editors, and my wife reads all my stuff flat out. Cause like, if you want to know,
good editor.
Oh, fifth grade teacher. Yeah. She's really good at it. She'll tear me apart. And not only that, to be like, "Hey, sure about this?" Just in the idea, not like you forgot a comma. And she'll cut at the heart of it, because she knows me better than anybody. When you've been together for 17 years.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, she'll cut to the heart of me, and she'll be like, "You sure that this is what you're trying to say?" I'm like, "Well, you know, like, how does she know that?" Like, you know, but it gives you an opportunity to reflect upon a lot of things. And you just don't want, I think you're missing out on those opportunities, and you're not going to be as good as you could be when you get into positions that are going to, like, that are really, really high stakes, whatever that is in your profession.
Yeah.
I'll default to, like, it's combat for an armor officer or an infantry officer, but whatever that high stakes moment is for you, like, do you want to think you left something behind that could have made you better in that moment? I mean, nobody does, but it's hard to think about, like, that high stakes moment when you're going through it, when your daily grind. So, you know, take advantage of the opportunities.
Well, speaking of good opportunities, let's backtrack a little bit. You talked about CGSC a little earlier. Why don't you go ahead and kind of explain what it is to the audience that might not know? And then what you how your time was there and what you gleaned from it, and did it get you out of your comfort zone?
So the Command General Staff College is the intermediate level education for the Army. I know the Air Force has their version. Navy has their version in Newport. Marines have their version. Everybody's got their own version of this, because you have to get to that level of education to either be competitive to promote for lieutenant colonel and get complete on that. So for the Army, the Command General Staff College is at Fort Leavenworth. You go there for a year, and it's kind of it's graduate level education, but there's also training aspects to it where you go through the military decision making process, and you learn doctrine, and you get exposed to a lot of things. I joke it was the corporate finishing school of the Army. Like, you know, the joke is you get your lobotomy at CGSC, and actually I wrote something about that jokingly, sort of, about how you can avoid it. And you don't get a lobotomy, at least from what I remember, at CGSC. So whatever. But it's a year that you can honestly, you have so much time and to explore what you want to explore. You can get a master's, which I think they're now going to be certified. If you complete the school when you're resident, you get the master's anyway. You get a master's anyway, but there's other masters out there through Kansas State, Central Michigan. You can get really good at golf, as a lot of general officers talked about. You can't
make it without it.
Right. Apparently you got to have like a 5 handicap or less.
Yeah.
You can invest in your family. You have plenty of time to explore Kansas and the Missouri area. Kansas City's pretty awesome. I wish we had more time. COVID kind of put a real crimp on that, but it did for everybody. So I'm not complaining at all. Yeah. There's exchange programs. I did the United Kingdom exchange, where I actually got to go over to the UK for 2 weeks to their version of CGSC. And we did a staff ride in France. And while we were there, COVID happened. I woke up to messages after the president came on shutting the borders down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was fun. But we made it back, so it was all good. But it was a great experience. What I'm trying to say about CGSC is it is an opportunity to explore what you want to explore. And if you don't take advantage of that year, you're missing out. For me, my number one thing that kept me moving forward was my family. My family is my number one thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about my wife and my son and my future daughter, but my parents, my wife's parents, my brothers, or my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law and my sisters-in-law. They're all incredibly important to me. And what we were able to do there was, especially in the nuclear family, my wife and my son, the year I had with my son, I will never have another one like that.
Yeah.
As long as I'm in the Army, for sure. When he was 2 years old, I would walk in the door at 1400 or whatever it was, 2:00 in the afternoon. And, he'd be there and we'd play. I'd get up, go to the gym. He'd take a nap, come back. He'd wake up. We'd play, have dinner together as a family. And that stuff doesn't happen all the time, right? Yeah. So if you're not taking advantage of that at CGSC, I think you're failing. Personally, that's my opinion. It's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just your opinion.
Yeah, but some people will push back on it. I personally think it's more important than what happens in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Because what every general officer also talked about besides their golf game was not everyone, a lot of them talked about their regrets in missing time with their family.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. And that really struck a chord with me. Like, hey man, what are you going to do in your field grade time? You got to set a foundation here at CGSC to say, you guys are important to me, regardless of what the job looks like. And if I'm not doing it here, there's no way when I'm working 10, 12, 16-hour days as a division CHOPS or a battalion S3 operations officer or XO, mm-hmm. that I'm ever going to set time aside for them.
Yep.
And even the times that I have to really invest in the profession and in the job, if I lay the groundwork in at CGSC, that's going to pay dividends on the back end.
Oh yeah.
And that was my opinion. And I'm going to say that CGSC, if you're not taking advantage of the family time, going to the Kansas City Zoo, maybe you don't go run 3 miles on Saturday morning and you get up early and you make breakfast and have pancakes and eggs with your kid and your wife, mm-hmm. and then have a great day doing whatever. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that to me is what CGSC was about. People may disagree, and that's fine. But you have to, again, it's an opportunity for you to explore what you want to explore. So that's my 2 cents on CGSC.
All right. Let's talk a little bit. Obviously, both of these for my website and yours as well is for leadership development. What would you say? I know particularly in the Army, there's a lot more responsibility earlier on, I would say, as opposed to a rated officer in the Air Force, particularly like rated flying, because we're there to particularly learn how to fly for a long time. You all, I think on the other hand, in the Army, and I'm being broad here and kind of laying that foundation, but I feel that the Army has a lot more responsibility on an individual level a lot earlier on. So what would you say, what is your leadership style and how has it evolved over time, if it has?
So it absolutely, it has to have evolved over time, because if it hasn't, I'm not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And if I looked like the Lieutenant Folinusz as a leader, I would fail miserably.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have paid attention and wasted a lot of my time here at doing this stuff. And I'm not trying to be silly or funny, but that to me, that's the truth. That's a part of leadership, learning and reflecting and understanding what you need to work on. The emotional intelligence aspect of it, the self-awareness, to realize like, hey, maybe my emotion drives too many decisions, which I'll get to here in a second. But I think what honestly has made me even remotely successful in my military career is going back to like my father. My father, I mentioned before, is 39 years as a steam fitter. Try not to get emotional.
Yeah.
But he was a union president for 10 years. And every summer they would have these steam fitter picnics up in the mountains in New Jersey. And I will never forget being like 10, 11 years old in the late 90s, mm-hmm. and having, to me, it seemed like hundreds, but it may have been, it's probably a lot less. People come, you're Bill Folinusz's son? Yeah, I'm Billy. Oh, you're Junior. I'm not a junior. Middle name's different, but regardless, same point.
Uh-huh.
Like, your father did X for me.
Uh-huh.
When I needed help, he was the guy. And he never asked questions. He knew I was in trouble. He needed whatever. And he lived a rough, I mean, he worked. When I say he worked, I mean, the man worked.
Yeah.
And every day when I go to work, if I don't have that same work ethic, I can't, I don't know how I can measure up. And I know my brother and my sister are the same way. And it's something that like he just ingrained in us is to just be a blue collar person. Bring your lunch pail to work every day, put the time in, and take care of your people. And, you know, there's a conflict there a little bit sometimes in accomplishing the mission and taking care of your people. And that's honestly where, as a leader, I've tried to evolve a little bit in balancing those two things better.
Yeah.
As a young lieutenant, that blue collar thing, that I'm from Jersey, so the emotion, I'm not Italian, but the emotion, the hands, you see me probably with the hands.
You're talking with your hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobbity boobity. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was a very emotional leader as a young officer, which has its positives, but if you allow it to override your decision-making process, it can be very dangerous. And I learned that I needed to figure out ways to harness that emotion and not. I'm still very bad at showing it on my face. I've been told that even since I started this job, but it's something that I constantly try and work on. So that way I can lead up more so than leading down. I think leading down is something I naturally am able to do, but I have a disconnect sometimes when I try and lead up. And by leading up, being a good follower, I think sometimes I'm not afraid to speak my mind. And anybody who I've ever worked for would tell you that, to my detriment sometimes. And that's also to the detriment of my organization, because I fail to realize that I'm the face of my organization if I'm the leader.
Yeah.
And so I've needed to find that balance, and CGSC was an awesome opportunity for me to reflect as well and work on some of that stuff. And my classmates, who are incredible, Staff Group 8 Bravo, they gave me some awesome feedback. One of my staff mates, Major Carla Bender, would constantly call me out for my facial expressions as a joke. But it made me realize, like, I'm doing it subconsciously.
Yeah.
I'm not realizing it. And so, like, if now I'm briefing, you know, the commanding general, and now I'm giving a facial expression when he gives me some hard feedback, it kind of undercuts my brief. And I got to realize that as a field grade officer.
Yep.
So again, my leadership style is the blue collar, like, bring your lunch pail to work every day, work your butt off, take care of your people, know your people and what's important to them, be empathetic, accomplish the mission, and harness that emotion for positives, and don't allow it to override the good things that you're doing. Because one emotional outburst can crush so many good things that you've done, and it doesn't matter. After that, you've now somehow, you know, you're going to be judged for that emotional, you know, outburst or whatever. Even if it's just a facial expression, that can, depending on your boss, can be the death knell for you.
Yeah.
So
first impressions are a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of my evolution in a nutshell. Is it's really been trying to figure out how to harness my emotion and my organizational skills. But really, my emotion has been the one thing I've focused on, because I think it drives me. But again, I need to know when it's kind of hindering my ability to communicate as well. So
yeah, and I think just you knowing that, I think, is half the battle. Like, a lot of people don't solicit feedback and think they're walking on water, you know, and that's definitely not the case. And unless somebody tells you, or you're like, man, when I get emotional, I make just rash decisions that usually don't end up the way I thought they would. And you're like, I can't think of a particular instance, but I'm kind of the same way. It's like when you get angry, for instance, you're like, you just want to lash out and, like, maybe I'm pretty calm natured, but, you know, berate somebody, which I would never do. But, you know, there's certain types of anger where you're like, all right, I'm kind of at that level to where I need to, like, just take a deep breath, like quick timeout or something like that. But I think being cognizant of whatever your fault is, because we all think we're good at everything, right? It's other people that are, you know.
Part of the human condition is we like to believe we're perfect and everybody else is the problem, which might sum up a lot of problems. But
and I might be a little biased here. You know, like when you're married or something, it's easy to find, like, the faults in people as opposed to glorifying what you're good at. And I think that as a team, and, you know, I've been in 8 years now, and I've been in several leadership roles now, but you got to build a team. I feel that you don't have to be good in every area of whatever you're leading, but you do need to be good at identifying people who are good at your weak areas. For instance, back when I was a flight commander for the first time, I don't really know the equivalent for you, but it's like as a rated officer, it's kind of your first real level of leadership. And it's like, hey, is this person?
We would say a platoon leader.
Okay. So kind of the same thing. It's like, hey, you're in charge of, I don't know, 15 people, whatever. I don't know what your numbers are, but that's aside from the fact it's like, hey, I was in charge of all the performance reports for officers, enlisted, training reports, and decorations. And I know a little bit about all four, but my sweet spot's really the officer performance report kind of stuff. I knew about EPRs and all that, but I have other enlisted people in there who are rock stars at that stuff. And it really taught me to not just delegate, but really trust, like, hey, I know that you're going to do a good job at whatever you're doing. I have no reason to think that you're not going to until you kind of tell me otherwise. And luckily that wasn't the case. And like you were talking about, like with your dad, blue collar kind of leadership, how you coin it. I grew up as an only child, so it was difficult for me, I think, in the beginning to not think about just myself, but I, like we were just talking about, you have to be cognizant that that might be a fault of yours. And since being married and kids, I've evolved a lot as leadership style. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, if you put mission, obviously always comes first, but there's very few instances, I think, in your everyday work environment where you have to put mission first every single second of every single day. So you got to find that time. Otherwise, I think, to really entrust, and I like the term servant leadership by Robert Greenleaf. I wrote an article on him just my thoughts on it a while back. And just, if you put other people first, everything else kind of falls into place. Like, you don't have to be an expert in everything. I was just chief of tactics for my plane. And I wasn't the expert, but I knew how to get the team together, and together we were kind of the expert. It wasn't just me. And right. I think you have to kind of treat people, the way they want to be treated. Like, hey, I know that you know a lot of things, so I value what you know because I don't know it. And why don't you go teach some other people, or things like that? Because I think that's how you really learn as well, is teaching other people. As instructors and stuff, like, that's how you really solidify a lot of information, is if you know it, if you can impart it to somebody else, kind of thing. Right. So anywho, I went off on a little tangent there.
No, but you're 100% correct, because again, going back to the ROTC thing, right? I was told, no, this is bad for you. I spent 3 years at Temple University as an APMS. Mm-hmm. It was an unbelievable experience. Got my grad degree. That was awesome. But more importantly, what I got to explore in my own ability to develop others, because that was my sole job, is to instruct and develop cadets to be second lieutenants. That's it. And I solidified my counseling process, solidified my ability to talk to a ton of different types of people, right? Because not everybody has the same background. Yep. And North Philadelphia is pretty diverse, right? So like me, as a white dude combat arms officer, had to talk to a ton of people and get them to buy into what I'm selling. Yeah. And how do I do that? And I had to do some reflection because I failed in certain instances. And that really stunk. That was not fun. Mm-hmm. But if you're like, again, those times and having those opportunities, like they're incredible. And if you're not taking advantage of developing your own way, like you said, to impart that knowledge, because that's when you truly know, like, okay, I understand this. I'm not maybe not like the premier person at it, but like I truly understand this because now that person is feeding back to me like this knowledge. And that's really cool to see when that person, those people you're trying to impart that knowledge to, are able to understand it. That's leader development, period. Right? Like that's how you're making other people better. And that is what honestly drives me to stay in this profession. Yeah. And stay. So
yeah, because you're thinking more, as you're younger, you're more me. What can I do? And I feel like particularly the older I've gotten and been in leadership roles, it's like what can I do for other people as opposed to what can I do for myself? And I think as a byproduct of just you kind of helping other people with the proper intent or motive of, hey, I'm just doing this to help somebody else out. It's not like, oh, I'm doing this for whatever reason, like professionally. That I think the intent behind it matters a lot too, not just the action. So that's something to consider as well.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about writing a lot. I see you have a lot of books behind you, as most people I interview as well. I haven't met a leader that tries to do professional development without reading. I think it's near impossible, and writing obviously is part of reading. But what, I guess, have you, like great books? What's your favorite genre? Do you think you could be where you're at today without having read prolifically?
I haven't read prolifically. I will not qualify myself as that yet.
Okay.
I'm too young to have said that I've read prolifically yet.
You got a lot of books back there, so I was judging.
I got another bookcase over here. My wife makes fun of me because like my bugaboo is I'll buy books. I don't care. Like I love books. I can't get into like the Audible thing. I tried driving to work. It's nowhere near as good.
I love Audible. That's what's really set me over the edge. And I wouldn't say I'm a prolific reader, but I've read more books in the past year and a half than I have probably in the past 10 years. So
yeah, I mean, reading to me is like, I don't want to say the keystone because that's a little much, but it's a cornerstone to what we do. I mean, I'll start at doctrine, right? I'll be honest with you. Doctrine is boring. It's dry, and it's essential, period, right? And if you don't read it, how can you honestly know your job? Because that's the common language that we all speak. So at a minimum, if you don't read doctrine, and I'm not saying read every word and know every manual, because I don't, but like know where to find it, read it before you have to do something with it, and in the moment, be able to pull it out and be like, okay, all right, cool, got it. All right, that's at least a frame of reference. But more so than that, if you want to look at like the self-development piece, like a lot of people will focus self-development around you PTing on Saturday and Sunday. Did you run out? Did you get your 4-mile run in? You know, it's more than that. Like you have to read in order to fully divest yourself into what we're doing here. And the most disturbing comment, I think one of the most disturbing comments I've ever had from a boss is I brought up a book, a pretty easy, I don't even remember what book it was, but it was a pretty well-known book in a counseling session. And he was like, yeah, I don't read. And again, my facial expressions probably told him exactly what I was thinking. Like, oh boy.
Oh, buddy. Yeah.
That's not good. And you know, I don't know. I can't put my finger on one book. Like, I think growing up, I was obsessed with World War II. My grandfather, I have his certificate right there. Awesome. He was a waist gunner. He was an Army Air Corps guy, a waist gunner and radio operator on a B-24 in the 15th Air Force out of Grottaglia, Italy. And I have all this stuff. So I have his photos, his certificates, like his mission lists, 35 missions, Ploesti, Romania, all those, you know, hotspots. So World War II was like, as many people growing up our age with Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan and everything, I was obsessed with it. Yeah. Even before 9/11 happened. And, you know, 9/11 was the catapult for me to be in uniform, but anything World War II, I was into it. As I've gotten a little bit older, I think history in general is where I focus. And I've started to diversify quite a bit into just, you know, history of the world. And I really, really enjoy American history. I love my dad being a union guy, love like, labor stuff, and kind of understanding. I read an awesome book like about the bonus army. If you want to, anybody, if you're watching this or listening to this and you've used the GI Bill and you don't know about the bonus army, you're missing out. You are missing out. Because like, if you want to understand what people gave up and what people went through in order to give us the benefits that we enjoy, you got to read about it. And I think history as a in general, whether it's military history or political history or philosophical history or whatever, you got to read it in order to understand how we've gotten here, right? Because the world, I mean, go back to what's happening right now with COVID. If you read about the Spanish flu in 1918, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's literally exactly what is occurring right now is exactly what occurred in 1918, 1919. Exactly. From the human reaction to the government reaction, besides World War I being occurring, there is the parallels are insane.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not reading about like history, you have no frame of reference. And I think General Mattis, he even said it, like, do you want to be the one to arrive at a spot and have to figure it out that first, as that your first time?
Mm-hmm.
And if you read history, you have, it's rehearsals, man.
Yeah.
Like you're a pilot. They just throw you in there and be like, hey, go ahead, fly that thing?
No, absolutely not.
Right? No, you rehearsed it. As a tanker, you know what we do before we go out to gunnery? We go into a sim and we shoot gates before you, and you have to qualify all the gates before you go out to actually shoot. And then we do dry runs, we do runs, and then we shoot live. And it's the same thing with reading history. If you're reading history, you're doing all that so that when you get to the live fire, you get to the point of friction where you have to make the hard decisions, and now it matters, and mission accomplishment is on the line, people's lives are on the line. You make informed decisions. Yep. The people who don't read history are the ones who are stumbling their way through it. I don't care what your PT score is. I don't care, how hard you think you are. If you are not reading, you're failing your soldiers and you're failing yourself.
Yeah,
I would agree. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. Particularly, and I think Mattis talks about this. It's like reading is not going to shine the full light of what you need to do as a leader, decision-making wise, but it's going to give you a glimpse or a little bit of a shadow, if you will, of, the direction and azimuth of where to go. And I think he liked to use the term, I was never caught flat-footed in any situation. And I've talked about this before, but I just love the concept. It's like, why wouldn't you want to develop like that as a leader? Because if you're not, you as an individual, we're both dads, married, full-time job, and you get home and, it's kid time. So you have all that, and it's like, well, if you make the excuse not to read, and that's why I like Audible a lot, is I have a 40-minute drive to work. So that's kind of my time to just get in the zone and do that. And when I run, I kind of do the same thing, but it just helps you, get in that direction of, hey, I haven't done this before. And I'm never going to experience that in my life ever. Like, I'm reading a biography on Grant now, and I'm never going to experience the gold rush in San Francisco and having to, go across country on a ferry. But, the circumstances he was put in throughout those times, one, I think, like you were talking about earlier, characteristics about yourself. Well, that's kind of why I love biographies, is because you learn characters of other people. And it's like, man, I kind of see myself doing that same thing, and that kind of opens up a little bit of a branch, as well as we talked about writing earlier. As you write, you're thinking about ideas and like, well, what would I do? It's like,
yeah, no, I completely agree.
So I love history. A lot of people don't like history, which is kind of unfortunate, but, and I also heard, I was talking with, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about introducing fiction into your readings. One, it kind of helps, history can get a little mundane at times, but fiction gives you a way to kind of like think outside the box a little bit and kind of get those gears going, as opposed to everything that's just purely history and factual. So that's something else to keep in mind. I don't love fiction personally, like movies and stuff. I like things based on real life. That's just how I'm wired, but I try and
never watch Star Wars.
I don't think anybody's going to judge you for that. I don't love Star Wars personally, but
I will well be judged for that. Someone's going to listen to this and comment like, this dude's never watched Star Wars. I don't trust the thing. That's okay.
That is awesome. I think the next two questions that we have, we've kind of already touched on, about social media, field grade leader, where you think it's going, future plans, vision for field grade leader. But we did have one more. Let me find it real quick. I know you talked about earlier a couple of things about challenges, but what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome that? And I don't want to open up too much here, but just maybe something big that was a huge turning point in your life. I feel like we've all had a huge turning point. What I guess in particular was yours, or one of the many?
I mean, man, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So when we were in Iraq, and this is, people go, oh, you give a war story. No shit, there I was, right?
That's pretty
Uh,
significant place to be emotion wise.
yeah, yeah, it's a joke in the Army though. Like, oh, there we go with another war story.
Mm-hmm.
But my first true mentor as a lieutenant was a man named Captain David Van Camp.
Mm-hmm.
My first company commander when I was a brand new lieutenant was not a good human being, not just a bad leader. He was just not a good human being. And he was only my company commander for a month or 2, 3, something like that. But it was enough for me to remember, like, this is not what I want to be. And Captain David Van Camp was a guy, his first deployment as a lieutenant got hit by a suicide vest as a company XO in 4th Infantry Division, survived that, and had no reason to stay in the Army. None.
Yeah.
And he fought his way back through WTU, Warrior Transition Unit, to get back out to the force so that way he could go command. I mean, the man, he was pretty beat up from that, obviously. And then he took heavy company of 2-3 ACR. And now I was at the time 1st platoon leader, took over 4th platoon, the route clearance platoon. And he was like the first Army leader that I remember who was truly vested in people. Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm talking about actually, I had great mentors prior to that, but like my true first Army leader as a lieutenant, you're really wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. Oh yeah. And you know what I mean? Like you're ready just for anything. And so he took me to war, man. Like there's nothing like that. Like you're looking at the dude. Like I read tons of books about going to war, watched every movie, Band of Brothers 100 times. You have Richard, Dick Winters. He was my Dick Winters. Like that's who the was. And June 29th, 2011, he had transitioned to another troop to be a company commander, and that cop had got rocketed, and him and 2 of his other soldiers were killed. And I'll never forget, that day. And I won't go into the details of everything, but it was, man, like I didn't have much loss in my life. I've been very lucky. Mm-hmm. Like I lost my grandfather when I was very young, but really, ultimately, the loss of someone that mattered to you was not something that was present much in my life. We had lost another friend of mine, Omar Vasquez, prior to that, but Captain Van Camp was just like something different about him. He was special. He was like one of those special people in your life. Right time, right place, truly invested in who you were. And all the soldiers will talk about him like that, all of his officers, everybody. And losing him was rough. And again, going back to the emotional aspect of it, going out on patrol the next day. And this was one of the first moments I realized, like, hey, you have to be the guy. Yeah. Look your soldiers in the eye who want to go out and just shoot stuff, right? And you have to be the moral compass for these dudes. How do you do that? And I remember sitting in my shoe and being like, okay, how are we going to do this? Because I was like fired up. Like that's all you want to do is like, you just lost someone who meant the world to you as a leader, who had guided us for such a long time. And I remember walking out there and being like, hey guys, we got to go out and do our job. No different day. Yep. Today's June 30th. And that's it. And if anybody messes up, I'm going to hold you accountable, and that's it. And that was my patrol brief. And usually it wasn't that short, and people could judge me for it. Yeah. But I said, get the trucks, we're going. And we went. And we did our route clearance, went out 12 hours, did our time, came back, nothing happened. And it was like, that for me was like, hey man, you got to be the guy. Because I thought I was the guy prior to that. But until you have to like look your people in the face and make like, I don't know, that was really hard. That was like really, really, really hard as a leader. And you talk about being young. I was 2011? I was 24, barely 24 years old, in charge of 23 engineers, tankers, and scouts going out and doing our clearance. And all they wanted was to kill bad guys. And now they had a good reason to do it. Yep. And that to me was a really pivotal moment in my life. And, I have a little plaque here of Captain Van Camp's name, just as a reminder for what he gave up. And, I think about him quite often. He's a captain. I'm a major now. So like, what would he be as a field grade officer? And most important to him was leadership, taking care of his people, and obviously accomplishing the mission. I shouldn't even have to say that. And I think that is something that drives me quite a bit. In his investment in me and a lot of other people is something that I keep in the back of my mind, and it drives me, just like I've talked about with my father, to do right by other people, because he did right by me. Took a young lieutenant under his wing who was doing stupid things and being a knucklehead and really needed to find himself. And he gave me some honest feedback, and he did it the right way. And like, that's not, you're not going to find that often. I hate to break it to everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody's built the same. And the loss of him was like big. I don't mean to drone on about it, but like, that was a huge challenge. And I deal with that day often. I'm not saying PTSD or not, but like, it's just, I deal with that quite a bit. His loss resonates with me, and I hold it pretty close to the heart. I went and visited him a couple times in Arlington, and that was the first time I went by myself, because I couldn't bear to bring anybody else with me. Yeah. And that was probably the biggest challenge for me professionally. Everything else kind of pales in comparison. And then personally, I take everything as a gift, because he never had an opportunity to have a family like I did. I have. Yeah. So that gives a lot of perspective for me.
Yeah, I can't think of really a better story. Wow. I like the kind of moral of the story for that. He was able to leave a legacy in you, is kind of how I see that perspective, and a lot of other people as well. And then you had that bad leader who not only was a bad leader, he's just a bad person. Well, I think when people develop professionally and have that, hey, I'm looking out for other people, I'm genuinely here to help other people, which, helps the team as a whole. Well, then you get people like the guy you were talking about. I can't remember his name, but he's just there, kind of for himself. Like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Like, I'm going to take that out on everybody, as opposed to the guy that you're just talking about. And, you're a major now, and he was a captain. Like, you've succeeded him, and yet that's kind of a moral compass for you in a lot of things. And I think writing helps with that as well, to kind of leave a legacy in a positive manner to help other people. Because ultimately, yeah, you're writing down your thoughts, but in the grand scheme of things, and I've talked with Steve Leonard about this, Dr. Man, a little bit about leaving a legacy and how important that is. And if you can do that with other people, like, people are just going to pay that forward continually. And I can already tell, without you even having to say it, that you've paid that forward in some regards. He took you under his wing when you were a lieutenant, and I'm sure, as a captain, you've done the same thing. I've tried to do that same thing. I have a great mentor. I've had great mentors, and I'm kind of at the sweet spot now to where I can start really paying it forward, because I've been in those shoes where a lot of the other people have, and you don't get that perspective, I think, as a lieutenant, because you're like you were talking about, you're gung ho for anything and everything. It's like you're out there kind of
really dumb things as a lieutenant.
I think everybody did a lot of dumb things as well.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I probably shouldn't be here. Dumb things. Like, I was really dumb.
Yeah.
Like, really dumb. And it took guys like Dave Van Camp and people like him who were in our unit to like sit me down. And when I came home, there's a guy, now General Dave Foley, who, like, again, right place, right time, kept me in the Army. And he sat down, dumb Lieutenant Folinusz, and was like, "Hey man, you're screwing up." Yeah. Like, it was more about me personally. And he gave me perspective on everything. And when you have men, not men, but when you have people like that who are leaders, who sit you down and have these conversations and are honest with you, but do it in the right way and still make you feel valued, like, that's what it's about. Like, because that's ultimately, like, again, and going back to like Feel Great Leader, right? And we talked about this prior too, but if you look at the new logo, which is done by Steve Orban, Major Steve Orban, phenomenal human being. The L in leadership, right? It's a graphic control measure in the Army, how we would draw on our map, like how we would maneuver a unit. If you look at it, F has arrows and the L has an arrow. Well, there's a line in front of the arrow for the L. That's what we call the decisive operation on a map. So that would be a unit seizing an objective or whatever. For me, leadership is always the most decisive operation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I see a lot of failures in leadership, not and many more successes than failures, but too many failures. And especially like the field grade myth that like we're all automatons and all we do is run around with our heads in slides and, better hanging on the portal and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, cool. But take the time to like counsel your people and know them and check on them to make sure they're doing all right, know their situation and humanize them. Like
Yeah.
be a human. Like just be a good person. Like if you want to know how to lead, be a good person. What would a good person do? Well, he would either do A or B. I should pick the one that's a good person thing, and say, and it's one other thing that field grades don't do? Say thank you. They don't say thank you. And that to me will bother me till forever. And people are going to see this and that's not what field grades do. Like, no, that's what people do is they say thank you for hard work. And they acknowledge people's hard work. And it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be every week. But like so many field grades I've seen in my career, it's like, I don't say thank you. I don't respond. I've literally had field grades say, I don't want to thank you. I don't want to email saying thank you. It's like, what is so wrong with those two words?
Yeah.
Is it just say thanks? Like, would you be better with that? Like, people need to feel a valued member of the team or else they're not going to stay.
Yeah.
They're not going to stay.
I wrote about something along the lines of thank you in one of the first articles I wrote. And at the end of every email, like pretty much on the cue, I always say thank you for your time, because I think particularly as like if you're emailing a commander or somebody else higher up, it's like they got literally 50,000 other things to do, but they spent even 5 minutes of their day for me. It's like, hey, I really appreciate your time, because as a leader, the higher up in rank you get, that is your number one most limited resource, I think, is somebody's time, because it's being pulled in 100 different directions any second of the day. So that's how I leave off emails or really even in person, is like a firm handshake. Hey, I really appreciate you taking out time from your day.
Corona bump. Now it's we do.
Yeah,
corona.
That's right. It's an elbow. I haven't been back to work after deployment in a little while.
Corona bumps are good.
Yeah.
You just have to, you got a sleeve. You'll be fine. Handshakes are no good. Can't shake hands anymore.
Simulated handshake.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. And we just do this one, but I might be too close.
Yeah. Well, we're doing a virtual Zoom handshake here anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, we're right at about an hour. I think we've covered some good topics, talked about the field grade leaders a little bit. Kind of, hey, you're the dude now. Josh kind of left his legacy of, hey, I created this website, and that kind of ties back. Like, Josh is a great dude. He made this great thing kind of by happenstance of just luck and timing, and it kind of shut off. And he's kind of leaving that legacy to you, I feel, to kind of continue it on. And
I agree.
You got some big shoes to fill. So
facts. Facts. And I think I'm ready. I'm going to work hard at it. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I will work. I will work. That's all I can say. I can guarantee that, and that's about all I can guarantee.
That's half the battle.
Yeah. But hey, Chris, thank you very much for this opportunity, number one. And you're a phenomenal dude, and I appreciate our relationship and you putting in the time for me as well. And I consider you obviously a good friend. And again, thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, back at you. All right, have a good one.
You too, Chris.